Vital Organ scores century as Hampshire have the best of day one at the AGEAS. Hampshire and Kent both go into their mid-table clash at the AGEAS Bowl with the top-order batsman missing on England lines duty as both Zach Crawley and Sam Northeast received call-ups. Kent were boosted by an excellent victory at the Oval last week, while Hampshire had to settle for a draw after dominating the match as Warwickshire survived the final day's play. The makeshift Hampshire opening pair made a solid start, with Holland helping himself to a couple of early boundaries. And more fours for the Australian, including a lovely cover drive, brought up the 50 partnership for the pair. Holland repeated the trick as lunch approached with another crunching shot through the covers, bringing up his half-century off 74 balls. The lunch interval came soon after, with Hampshire 74 without loss, as Holland and Organ made a fine start. Organ hadn't found the boundary in the entire morning session, but that changed quickly as the afternoon began as he flayed Milnes for a maximum. Hampshire looked set to reach 100 without loss before Podmore made the breakthrough for Kent, Holland edging an away swinger to Dixon at slip. And in the next over, Rahane had to go for one when he carved a wide ball from Milnes to Bell Drummond in the covers. Russo got going in typically assertive fashion as Hampshire tried to rebuild before Organ clattered sixes off Ollie Rayner in consecutive overs. Organ moved to a maiden first-class half-century as more boundaries came up for both batsmen, before Russo sent Stevens to the fence 3 times in quick succession as the runs started to come at a rate of knots for the home side. More boundaries as tea approached meant that Russo was nearing his own 50 as the hosts reached the interval with both batsmen well placed and the score 182 for 2. Hampshire passed 200 as the pair brought up the century partnership before Organ picked up his third 6 of the innings off Denley. Before Russo scored consecutive 4s off Stewart as both batsmen moved into the 80s. The South African had to go though when Rayner had him caught by Dixon at slip for 92. Donald settled with a couple of early 4s and Organ remained to reach his own century, the makeshift opener's first in first-class cricket. But it was gone from the next ball as he edged Darren Stevens behind to Robinson. Before Stevens made it 2 in 3 balls when he clean bowled Berg for a duck. Donald was still there to take his side past 300 with boundaries off Stevens and Milnes. But the ball after sending Stewart to the fence, the Welshman was gone with Denley pouching the catch. And Stumps arrived with Hampshire in excellent position at 340 for 6. They'll hope McManus and Barker are able to push on towards 400 and maximum batting bonus points on day 2. Denley hits 100 as the runs flow in Hampshire. Hampshire had the best of day 1 at the AGEAS Bowl as Felix Organ scored a maiden first-class century as he shared a 166-run partnership with Riley Russo. Organ was out the ball after reaching the milestone, however, as Kent fought back with the ball to stay in contention before Hampshire closed on 340 for 6. Lewis McManus picked up where he'd left off the night before as he advanced the score with a series of early boundaries in the early part of the morning. McManus and Barker had already put on 50 in the morning, and McManus was on the cusp of his own 50 when he had a nibble at a wide one from Darren Stevens. And with his next ball, the veteran pinned Abbott in front as Kent fought back. Mason Crane survived the hat-trick ball, but he was gone in Stevens' next over as he too fell LBW to complete a second consecutive fifer for the veteran all-rounder. Keith Barker counter-attacked to take Hampshire beyond the 400 mark, and they decided to have a mini-session bowling at the Kent openers, declaring on 409 for 9. But that move didn't immediately pay off for stand-in Hampshire skipper Kyle Abbott, as Kent were relatively untroubled in scoring a couple of boundaries and reaching the interval on 14 without loss. And the Kent openers continued their solid start as they reached 34 without loss early in the afternoon. But Kyle Abbott was able to nip one back and trap Dixon LBW in front. Joe Denley came out to join the debutant Jordan Cox, and Denley picked up a couple of boundaries as Kent moved past 50. Keith Barker produced a booming in-swinger from around the wicket to remove Cox via an inside edge. Denley was joined by Bell Drummond, and the fours came thick and fast for both batsmen, with Bell Drummond moving it better than a runner ball as the partnership advanced quickly. And they motored past the 50 partnership as the Hampshire attack struggled to stem the flow of runs, before Denley moved to his own half-century not long before tea, and further boundaries saw Kent reach the interval on 158 for 2, having put on a hefty 144 runs in the session. Bell Drummond moved quickly to 50 after the tea interval thanks to 2 fours in an over off Kyle Abbott. And the boundaries continued to arrive for Denley as he moved into the 80s and Kent passed the 200 mark. Joe Denley moved to his second championship century of the season soon after at a good rate off 144 balls. Denley clattered Edwards for a maximum before fours off consecutive Edwards deliveries saw Bell Drummond move into the 90s. But Edwards got his revenge from the very next ball when he bowled Bell Drummond with a beauty for 94. The run rate slowed slightly with that wicket, but new man Kuhn was still able to put away the bad balls. The close came with Kent in an excellent position at 319 for 3, 90 behind but with 7 wickets still in hand. But with the pitch looking an excellent one for batting, it will take something special in the next 2 days to force a result. Bat continues to dominate ball at the AGEAS Bowl. A timely unbeaten 100 from Joe Denley, both in terms of his England prospects and in the context of this match, saw Kent reach 319 for 3 in response to Hampshire's 409 for 9 declared on a batsman-friendly strip on day 2 at the AGEAS Bowl. Denley kicked on beyond 150 as the morning began, with boundaries off Holland and Abbott. But Barker accounted for him with the new ball, swinging one in to trap him in front for a superb 154. Kuhn and new batsman Ollie Robinson took their side to a 4th bonus point as they passed 350. But the West Indian got his own back with the first ball of his next over, trapping Robinson in front with a Yorker. Kent moved into the lead before Edwards struck again with a brilliant off-cutter that proved far too good for Stewart. Darren Stevens came out to join his skipper at the crease and they saw Kent to lunch at 433 for 6 and a lead of 24 with the game looking destined for a draw. Kent came out with intent after the lunch break, perhaps hoping to only bat once in the game, and Darren Stevens went on the attack against Mason Crane. He smashed him for a 6 before following it up with 2 fours in the bowler's next over and then hitting him for another 4 and a 6. Stevens then flayed 3 consecutive balls from Edwards to the fence as he moved past 50 and Kent went past 500. But Edwards responded with a short ball to end the over that Stevens could only fend to Donald, who took a brilliant grab at short leg. Kuhn was shook up by a blow on the chin from Edwards and he became the bowler's 5th victim when the paceman uprooted his stumps. But Rayner ballooned an attempted cut off Berg to Rahane at first slip. And soon after, Kent were finally all out when Milnes chopped a wide one from Berg straight to Organ. 555 all out meant a lead of 146 on first innings for Kent, but they would need something special in the remaining day and a half to force a result. Holland and Organ came out to begin their second innings and they were content to take their time in reducing the deficit. Just 7 runs had come up in the first 8 overs when Stevens found a bit of movement to pin Organ in front. New batsman Rahane decided to be a bit more expansive as he picked up 3 early boundaries. And he took his side past 50 as he moved at nearly a runner ball. Rahane had moved to 42 when Stewart produced a beauty out of nowhere to trap him on the crease to bowl him between bat and pad. Russo came to the crease and went on the attack in typical style, sending Stewart to the fence from consecutive deliveries. The partnership passed 50 with Russo contributing a runner ball 35 as Hampshire reached stumps on 119 for 2, still 27 behind, but the game surely heading for a draw. Hampshire hold on for draw after Denley Sparks collapse. Kent piled up 555 as Bat continued to dominate ball on day 3 at the AGEAS Bowl. Kuhn and Stevens contributed with scores after Joe Denley fell for 154 in the morning, while Fidel Edwards' 5-wicket haul was the bright spot for Hampshire. The hosts will resume on 119 for 2 in their second innings, still 27 behind, but with the draw looking nailed on as the final day begins. Hampshire made a solid start to the day, with Ian Holland moving to a watchful 50 off 160 balls. And the batsmen took their side into the lead without any dramas as the game continued to head towards a draw. Russo went to his own half-century with boundaries off Stewart and Milnes before the pair went on the attack as their partnership moved beyond 100, sharing 14 off Milnes' next over. Kent captain Joe Denley brought himself into the attack and his leg spin did the trick immediately as Russo top-edged a pull to Bell Drummond. And Holland followed Russo back to the pavilion in the next over as he feathered Rayner behind to Robinson to put Hampshire in a spot of bother. With just 1 run added to the score, Denley struck again as Berg tried to cut a ball that didn't bounce enough, and with Hampshire just 40 ahead, suddenly Kent was scenting victory. Hampshire held on to reach lunch without further loss on 196 for 5, but Kent will feel if they can get amongst the wickets again in the afternoon session, they can set up a chase in the evening with Hampshire just 50 ahead. The collapse continued as the afternoon session began, with Stevens getting in on the act as he had McManus caught by Dixon at slip. Donald and Barker dug in to frustrate Kent, taking time out of the game while advancing the score when they could by putting away the bad balls. The lead passed 100 as Donald drove Milnes effortlessly to the boundary. And 8 maidens in a row took the sides to the tea break, with Hampshire 265 for 6, with the overs running out for Kent to force a result. Donald loosened the shackles by sending Denley to the fence in the first over after tea. But just 2 balls later he was gone when he picked out Bell Drummond off a Milnes bouncer to leave Hampshire 7 down and 124 ahead. A couple of boundaries for new man Abbott pushed the lead on further, but Denley accounted for him LBW as Kent continued to press with the overs running out. But Stewart had his man in his next over, caught by Cox at leg gully. And the catch was amongst the pigeons 3 balls later when Edwards edged Stewart behind, Hampshire all out for 298 to give Kent a chase of 153 to win in 17 overs. But they didn't get going very fast as just 2 came up off the first over from Kyle Abbott. They tried to accelerate but lost Dixon in the process when he slogged Barker to organ at deep mid-off. Joe Denley belatedly got the run chase going in earnest when he clattered Barker for 6 as 11 came up off the 4th over. It felt like Denley was swinging at every delivery. With the field set back, boundaries were hard to come by, but 2s were plentiful. But Blake edged an attempted hook behind off Edwards, with Kent needing exactly 100 to win. And Bell Drummond played on off Abbott 5 balls later. With Kent's hopes of victory retreating, the captains decided enough was enough, and they shook hands on the draw. A thrilling end to the contest in which Bat dominated ball. Kent will take 12 points from the contest, while Hampshire take 11.